Hello and welcome. This is my video highlighting my observations at the Old City Cemetery in Lynchburg, Virginia. For this assignment, I chose to visit Old City Cemetery, located in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's one of the oldest cemeteries in Virginia and in the United States, established in 1806, and it's also maintained a spot on the Virginia Historic Landmark on the National Register of Historic Places. There's around 20,000 graves on the property, and some of those belong to those who served in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. The cemetery is divided into two sections, the oldest part of the cemetery being on the right side, which again is going to have more of the Revolutionary War veterans, and then the family plots, which primarily are to the left side of the cemetery. One of the things that I noticed while visiting the graveyard was the religious influence and the significance that Christianity specifically seemed to play here. Initially, it was known as the Old Methodist Cemetery, and a lot of the things that I observed were engravings and scriptures, mostly seeing doves, lambs, crosses, Bibles made out of stone. And right above where my icon is located on this specific slide, you can see a right hand with an index finger pointing upward, symbolizing the afterlife and eternity in heaven. Some Bible verses I also found were Matthew 5:8 and Revelation 14:13, which both focus on the blessings of those who'd followed the Lord. There were a surprising number of infant and child burials at the cemetery. They, in fact, make over a third of the graves here, and these would range from just a few months to 10, 12 years old. I wondered if some of this was due to the child and infant mortality that was more commonly seen during the 1700s and 1800s, where you had more diseases and lack of medical technology. Family plots seem to primarily be separated by specific stones, alphabetized mapping, like the A that we see in the top right corner, and some of the more well-off families seem to have stone walls, iron gates, and fences surrounding their family plots. One thing I wanted to mention as well was the immigration from Scotland and Ireland, and how I saw that mentioned on some of the tombstones pictured here. And then some of the symbols seen in the Freemasons as well. Though not a military cemetery, they were quite a few military veterans that have been buried at this specific site. 5 were recognizable burials that specifically marked the graves of Revolutionary War veterans, 47 veterans from the War of 1812, and numerous Confederate soldiers from the Civil War era. Some were listed as musicians for the Confederate Army Band. About 3/4 of the graves have been identified as African American at Old City Cemetery, and both the City of Lynchburg and the Legacy Museum of African American History have really done a great job of trying to preserve and acknowledge the lives of those who had lived. Some of the ones that specifically stood out to me was Mrs. Martha Edley and Amelia Pride, and some of the things that they had accomplished over their lives. Some additional observations that I made while at the cemetery was the possibility of segregation, even with the grave sites, occupations that seem to be more common, religious affiliation or unspecified, and also many styles seen in the gravestones, marker statues, and different materials. My closing thoughts are to commend the city of Lynchburg, different museums and historians that had come together to keep this specific cemetery preserved, so that way the people like myself and you that are watching could learn more about the people that lived there and the historical significance that the place had held. There's no current burials allowed, so it's not like someone can go in and get buried there today, but they're doing that with the goal to preserve the history that is there, although ash sprinkling is acceptable with certain approval. And I know that I wasn't able to talk a whole lot really in depth about this topic, but I did make a article on my blog to highlight some of the different things I learned and studied while I was out there half the day that Saturday. But again, thank you so much for your time.